Hello everyone, welcome to this webinar on how to improve your GMAT score by 100 points in 30 days. And I'm Piyush, I'm going to be on that all of you can hear me loud and clear before I proceed. So feel free to let me know if you can hear me loud and clear. And I would love to definitely know a little more about you as in terms of where you are from, what kind of GMAT score are you targeting, and what is your present skill level. So feel free to let me know if you all of you can hear me loud and clear, and as well as ensure tell me that what's your current score like, what's your target score, and all of that. So it's gonna be very interactive session. I would love to interact with all of you. The objective of the session is simple. I want all of you to understand how can you go about strategically improving your GMAT score by up to 100 points in as less as 30 days. And we have helped many other students do that in the past. So I would love to share my experiences today with you. But just want to make sure all of you can hear me loud and clear. Just want to make sure that overall. And just say a yes in the chat if you can hear me loud and clear. And feel free to introduce yourself. Tell me about your current score, your target score, and what kind of time frame are you looking at preparation for GMAT. Okay. I don't see any comments as of now. Maybe there's a lag. But okay. Still no comments. So in the interest of time, I'm gonna proceed further. If none of you if you're not able to hear me, please say a no at least. That way I'll get to know there's something wrong with my audio. But yeah, it will be great if you guys can share. You can hear me properly. Okay, I have some responses now. My verbal was 10 points below mark. So how do I improve? Probably don't worry, BM. We're gonna talk about that. And this webinar is actually very because when I remember, I am someone who, as a student, has struggled a lot on GMAT. So there are people who come from great backgrounds, people who are sometimes born geniuses, and they find it easy to take the test and get to a high score. Sadly, that was not the case with me. I was good at quant was easy for me for some reason, maybe because I'm an engineer. But when I started with my verbal test for GMAT, I remember still I scored a 13 percentile only on my first ever GMAT verbal test. It was really, really demotivating for me. And I tried everything. I tried a lot of different methods, a lot of different techniques, but I still struggled. I remember my scores were always fluctuating between 25 to 70% on different tests. Sometimes I was scoring at 25%, sometimes it was 70, sometimes it was 50%. It is very different for different tests. But I was able to improve my verbal to a 41, which is 93 percentile in my first ever GMAT attempt. And I scored an overall of 740. So why this is important? This was important because you need to understand. I kind of understand how where students struggle and what students struggle with. Now, this was about me as a student. Now, as an expert, I have been in this industry for 7 8 years now. I have been helping many students improve their scores, and I kind of speak to about 4 to 5 students on a daily basis on an average. And from my experiences as a student and as an expert, I'm going to tell you what is that is stopping you from reaching your target score. So thank you, Maggie. Thank you, Brolio, for telling me that you guys can hear me well. That's great to hear. So just we are going to talk about all those things from my perspective. Some of the common reasons when I actually talk to students who are struggling to get to a 700 plus or 720 plus or 730 plus, the common reasons that I hear from them, and these are some verbatim which I get to hear very commonly from the calls that I have, one of them is I always get stuck with too close choices in the end. So that's one of the most common problems I see. And please feel free to type your issues if you face any problems. Okay, whatever you feel is the reason why you are not able to improve your GMAT score. Please feel free to mention that in the comments here in the chat here. I'll be more than happy to look at it. I would like to know from you what are the common problems that you guys are facing. So one issue which I hear from a lot of people is that I always get stuck with too close choices in the end. I'm able to eliminate 3 choices. I get stuck with too close choices. And obviously this happens more with verbal than like in quant. In quant, that's not something which happens very frequently. Dev says, yeah, this is exactly what I also face. That's exactly me. Uh, Info Guru, don't worry, I'll talk about the study mat as well in some time. The second thing which I hear from students, and please feel free to share your thoughts, what are the problems that you are facing. So the second thing I hear very commonly is that I can solve questions accurately without a time limit. If you don't put a timer on it, I can solve it pretty comfortably. I have a very good accuracy, I'm really good at it. But I can't solve it in just 2 minutes. If you just give me 2 minutes, which is there on GMAT, I somehow I'm not able to do that. I'm not able to work under that pressure. The third common reason which I hear from people is I'm scoring poorly because I'm not being able to do the last few questions properly because of time issues. Again, this is a very common problem I hear, that okay, I was not able to complete the test. Towards the end, they were like these 5 questions. I had just 5 minutes to solve it or 3 minutes to solve it, and I was not able to solve those last few questions, and that's why my score is not where it should have been. Okay, so many people tell me this. Matthias, you have a very important to say. Matthias says that is doing a lot of exercise questions the best way to improve your score. In fact, I have you covered. Don't worry. I'm going to talk about. Definitely going to talk about it, Matthias. Don't worry. Okay, I'll tell you what is the right method to improve your score. Many people believe just practicing more questions is the right method, but I'll definitely talk about that. So this is another problem which I hear from students. Okay, I'm scoring poorly because I'm not able to complete the test. The another issue which I hear is I'm bad at CCR or algebra. There's this one particular area which I'm not doing. I'm not good at, so that's why I don't do well on these. And another issue which I hear is like I feel anxious on the test day and I make silly mistakes. That's why my score is low. Now, all these problems are some of the most common issues. Again, there are more than 7 questions left. So yeah, these are the most common issues. And I'm going to talk about all of them today. I'm going to talk about each one of them, and I'm going to tell you what is the solution for each of them. And in order to understand the solution, we also need to understand what is the core reason here. Like these things that you see are generally outcomes of the core problem. They are not really the problems themselves. Okay, the core problem is something else, and once you understand that core problem, solving these issues becomes very easy. Okay, it becomes much more easier. So let's talk about them. So going to be 3 sections to this webinar. Very quickly, in a couple of minutes, I'm going to talk about who we are, like what does GMATWhiz does. And second, in the second part of the webinar, which is the main part, we're going to talk about how to improve your verbal, GMAT score by 100 points. And I'm going to spend about and in the end, I will open it up for an open-ended Q&A. So if you have any questions about your prep, anything around it, so feel free to post your queries. I'll be more than happy to take them up in the last part of the webinar. Okay. So very quickly about GMATWhiz, I'm Piyush and I work for GMATWhiz. GMATWhiz is an online course which is right now world's only truly personalized course. A lot of courses in the market talk about being personalized. They say that they are really personalized. They use AI and all of that, but we are the only course which actually personalizes your learning by using artificial intelligence in the right sense. And how we do it is basically we create a personalized study plan for users, for every single user, which is created by AI itself. It is not a study plan which is templatized 1 month, 3 month study plan. Those are like old age things. We believe in actually personalizing a study plan, which gives you a weekly task list for every single week to work on. And the task list also changes with every week that passes, depending on how you progress, what are the scores that you get, what is the speed that you work with, and how much time is available with you in every week. And this task list is simple. You have to simply click on the start button, and it will automatically give you whatever you need to do. If you need to solve a set of questions, if you need to learn a video, it comes with a real-time improvement module also. So for example, if you're working on the portal and the portal identifies that there are certain weaknesses in your case, then it will not just tell you that, okay, you are bad at this. It will actually understand why are you bad at this. It will actually understand why are you bad at this. What are the core problems? What are the conceptual gaps that you have? Go back to the database, identify what are the relevant lessons for it, give those relevant lessons to you over there, and then it will actually give you extra content, extra dedicated mentors to help you with in case you have any queries around your performance. And that's one of the reasons why GMAT Viz is GMAT Club's most effective course when it comes to when it comes to average score improvement. All right, so that's one of the biggest reason why we have helped students improve on an average by about 116 points, whereas there are many other companies whose average score improvement is much lower than ours. So that was about us. Now let's get into the main part of the webinar. Okay, now in this part I'm going to tell you very quickly how we have structured it. So I'm going to complete this webinar in two parts. Okay, one is what students do, like what is this what generally people do when they have to improve their score by about 100 points, and what you should be doing, what should be your focus when you actually have to improve your score. So these are two things that we are going to focus on. Okay, now tell me guys, when you actually think about improving your GMAT score, like what are the current things? A lot of you are here, a lot of you would have worked on this. So tell me, what are the strategies that you guys are following right now to improve your GMAT score? Let's hear from you about it. Okay, so tell me guys, what are you doing right now to improve your GMAT score? Hello Baron, I'm good, thank you for asking. Okay, what are you guys doing? I'd love to hear from you guys. What are you guys doing? So Matthias is doing a lot of exercise the right way to improve. So that was a question from Matthias. But what about others? What do you guys do in order to improve your score? Okay, Agrima says I take mocks. Okay, good. What about others? Okay, Paula says I maintain an error log. Good, Paula. That's nice way to go about it. Okay, Himanshu also is revising my error logs. Good. Okay, Maggie says practicing questions. I do practice a lot of questions. All right. Mafalda also says practice time set exercises. Nice. Okay. Okay. So most of you are saying, okay, mock tests, practicing. Some people are saying error logs. Okay, good. So some of the common things which I hear from students is I practice questions, like work on like doing more questions, practicing more questions, take mock tests by like improve on the areas that you're not good at by taking mock tests, and a lot of people go to concept building and learn shortcuts. These are three most common things which I hear from students when I ask them, okay, what are you doing in order to improve your score in this time? So some of the common things that people do. Now, I'm not saying practicing questions is not the right way to go about it, but just practicing questions is not going to help you a lot. For example, when you actually practice questions, it is helpful, you learn something, but many a times it does not improve your score as much. And the reason for that is very simple. If you continue to practice question without working on the methodology or improving what is the core problem or working on the core problem, you will actually not see a huge improvement in your score. You will not see your score going up significantly. In order to improve your score, it is very, very important that you focus on the right thing. Okay, and the main reason why people practice more questions is that they want to improve their timing. A lot of people come to me and say that, okay, sir, how do I improve my timing? What is the method to do that? And that's why many people believe that practicing questions will actually help them save time. Now, here is why I want to answer this question. What is the time saving irony? Many of you say that, okay, I struggle because I take extra time to solve a question. I cannot solve a question in 2 minutes. If you give me more time, I can solve it. Now, what is the whole reason behind it? You need to understand, on GMAT you don't have more than 2 minutes to solve it. So telling yourself that, okay, I can solve it in more than 2 minutes, if I have 3 minutes or 4 minutes, is not going to help you. You need to reduce the time, but you need to reduce the time by doing the right things, not the wrong things. Now, the problem with me as a student when I was studying was I actually focused on the wrong areas in order to reduce the time. That was one very, very big mistake I did. I always used to get the hard questions wrong with the time limit, and I actually felt that I can probably get this hard questions right if I have enough time to solve it. So the objective of like my entire focus was to somehow get this hard questions right by saving time, because if I could save time and I can solve these questions quickly, I could probably get a much better accuracy as well. So how do you save time? How do you save time, or how do you solve questions quickly? The most common thing which people do, and I also did, was we cut corners while we are reading the question. We kind of cut corners over there. If there is a RC passage, if there is a quant question, it is not just for verbal, it's for quant as well. If there is a question in quant, a data sufficiency question or a problems question which is question, or a data sufficiency question, or a in verbal, for example, in RC, we'll quickly go through the passage and actually try to spend more time on the answer choices because we feel that okay, the answer is in the choices. So let's spend our energy and time there. Now, when you start doing this, that's when the root cause to the problem starts. Okay, that's the root cause to the problems that start, and let's see how. Let's see why this leads to the lot of problems that happen. Now, the moment you read the question stem quickly, the moment you do that, what happens is you have only a rough understanding of what's being stated. You do not have a very thorough understanding of what's being stated. And since you have just a rough understanding of what's being stated, it is easy for you to eliminate 2 to 3 choices confidently. You know that okay, from the whatever limited understanding you have, these are the 2 3 choices that you can eliminate very easily. But you end up getting stuck with 2 or 3 close choices in the end. You will able to eliminate some, but you are stuck with the other ones. Is the problem with this? Can anyone tell me? Like some of you said that I get stuck with 2 close choices. So what do you do in that case? What do you do in that case? Dev, I guess you said you were stuck with 2 close choices, and I guess I'm sure many of other people also are stuck with 2 close choices. So what do you do in that case? If you're stuck with 2 or 3 close choices, what is that you do? What is that you follow? What is that you do? Let's say you have a CR question or a SC question. You're stuck with the last 2 choices. What is the next step that you follow? And I would like to hear from you guys here. What is that you do? Still waiting to hear from you. Okay, Vichal says we guess. Okay, good. Thank you for being honest. Okay, Tasvi also says make an educated guess. Right? Just guess one of them. Like tutor says. Okay, good point. Most of the people do that, right? Maybe reread question, reread the question again. You say you're guessing, but many people actually reread the question and you reread the choices multiple times. If you are stuck with 2 or 3 choices, you will reread those choices multiple times. You will reread the question if needed, and then in the end, you mark some answer as time is running out. So yes, you read again, you waste time, you click on the answer, one of the answers, and you move forward. That's what most people do. Now, if you look at this, you started to save time. You wanted to save time on the question, and you started by cutting corners, and you read the question stem quickly. Now, the moment you do that, you are able to save time. You are not spending a minute on the question. You're spending just 20 30 seconds. So you have saved time. But the moment you are able, you are able to eliminate 2 3 choices also confidently. So in 40 50 seconds or maximum a minute, you're down to 2 choices. That is great. But when you start rereading again, when you start rereading again, you have to spend much more time than you actually ended up saving. Right? So Dikshit, you are right. When you read again, you actually end up consuming time. So the entire problem that we see here, if you look at the total time being taken, which 2 to 3.5 minutes, what is the problem? What is the core source of the problem that is there? What is the main issue that led you to spend this extra time overall? If you look at the core reason is nothing but the first instance itself, the very first instance where you actually started reading the question stem quickly. If you did not do that, if you focused on reading the question stem better or properly in the first go itself, you would not have spent that extra time. So the irony with time saving is when people rush to save time, in the end, they end up putting or they end up investing more time on it. That's the biggest irony with the time saving thought process that is there. Again, I'm not saying that you don't need to save time. You have to save time, but if you actually don't follow the right approach, you actually will end up reading the question stem quickly. Many people follow this approach of splits on sentence correction. I actually interact with many people on a regular basis. I was even interacting with another a student. I don't want to name the course that he was working with, but he was saying that his approach was simply going to option choices in SC and see what is the starting point, see what is the ending point, what is the difference in the splits, and working on it. But that is something which does not work. The wrong approach will not get you to the answer. And the other reason why people read questions very quickly is basically people are worried about timing. When you're worried about timing, you read the question stem very, very quickly. Okay. So these are two big reasons why when you say that, okay, I have to solve questions within 2 minutes, that thought process leads you to a bigger problem, which is inconsistency in scores. Because if you try to cut corners, that will happen. So you need to learn the right method. If you learn the right method, you can actually get to the answer much more confidently in the right amount of time. I'm going to talk about this a little more, but let's talk about the last questions. The next question, the next concern, the next common concern which I actually hear from students is what I kind of get the last questions wrong, and that's why my score is not that great. I kind of end up missing the last few questions. Okay, so Lactute is saying the network is getting stuck sometimes. So I just want to quickly understand if my network is not great. If it is my network getting disconnected a few times in between? Are you guys losing my voice? Please say a quick yes, no. I will try switching to another network if my network is creating any issue. Just want to be 100% sure about it. Is my network creating any issues, guys? Get the last questions wrong, and that's why my score. Okay, I'll wait for your responses because I think there is slight bit of a delay of from maybe I'm not receiving the responses in real time. But is my network fine? Is my voice getting stuck, or is just for a couple of people? Just want to make sure that. So please say a yes, no. Okay. Sarthak says it's fine. Avichal says just a little. So if it's just a little, we can manage it. Okay. PVLV says it sometimes gets stuck for me too. 1 or 2 seconds. Fine. I think with 1 or 2 seconds, I don't want to take the risk of using the other network because I think this network is much better overall that what I'm using. All right. So let's move to this one then. So what about the last questions? When people say, okay, I missed the last questions, last few questions, and that's why my score is not good. Let's answer that. Now, in order to understand that, we have to actually look at the algorithm. Again, in many of my webinars, I talk about it, but this is very, very critical for us to understand because people who say that, okay, last questions is what is stopping me from doing well, probably do not understand how the GMAT algorithm properly functions. So I'm going to quickly run you through this, and then I'm going to talk to you about a real case studies from GMAT itself to help you understand that it's not the last questions which is actually creating trouble for you. So think of it like this, that whenever you start the test, it mostly gives you a medium difficulty level question to begin with. Okay. And if you actually do get the medium level question correct, the next question that you get is of a medium hard difficulty level. And if you get that one correct, the next question that you get is of a hard difficulty level. And if you are getting the hard question correct, it kind of stays at the similar level. But if you get that question wrong, in this case, this particular student has gotten 3 out of 5 questions correct. So his accuracy is 60%. And the number of points he has scored is 3 plus 4 plus 5. Obviously, the hard questions are valued more on the GMAT than the slightly easier questions. So that's what the score this guy has obtained. All right. Now let's take another example. Let's say another student is taking the test. He also starts with a medium question, but he gets the very first question incorrect. Now what happens is the next question he gets is easy medium. He gets that incorrect as well. The third question he gets is easy. He gets it right. The fourth question he gets is easy medium because he has gotten the last question correct. So the difficulty level increases. And that's when the algorithm serves him a medium question also. So if you look at the accuracy, this guy has also gotten 3 out of 5 questions correct. So his accuracy is exactly the same. Both the students have exactly the same accuracy numbers. But if you look at the score of the other guy, he has gotten these 3 questions correct. So his score is just 1 plus 2 plus 3, which is 6 points. So you look at 12 points versus 6 points as the number with the same level of accuracy. That's how the GMAT algorithm works. And I'm giving you a very simplistic understanding of the algorithm. I'm not giving you a complicated understanding. This is like just to help you understand how an adaptive algorithm really works. But GMAT does not most likely adapt after every question. It mostly adapts after a set of 3 or 4 questions, after a block of 3 or 4 questions. That's when the algorithm mostly adapts. So well, understand the algorithm also. It sees some real scorecards also. But this was just to give you an idea about the adaptive algorithm. If you get a difficulty level of a question correct, the next question or the next set of questions is supposedly more difficult. That's what how it works. So now I'm showing you actual enhanced score report card from GMAT. This is given by GMAT for verbal section of one of my like it's actually my scorecard itself. So it is showing you the accuracy in each of the quarters of verbal. So in this basically in the first scored quarter there are 8 questions. In the second one there are 7, in the third one there are 7, and in the last one there are 8. So a total of 30 questions are scored on verbal out of 36 questions which are tested on verbal. There are 6 experimental questions which we don't know where they come, or there's no way to understand which are experimental and which are scored questions. So we can't really do anything about it. But out of the total scored questions, this chart shows us the quarter. So if you look at the first quarter, the student made 2 mistakes. So I made 2 mistakes in the first quarter. In the second quarter again, I made 2 mistakes. In the third quarter, I did not make any mistakes whatsoever. In the last quarter, I made 3 mistakes. So if you look at my number of mistakes, the total mistakes I made was 7. All right. So just register this data in your mind. And if you have any questions about this scorecard as of now, feel free to post it in the comments. I'll be more than happy to take it up. Now, let's look at another ESR. So this is one ESR which we have already looked at. I'm going to show you another ESR. This is another ESR which you have in front of you of another student who has taken the GMAT, and it shows the verbal performance of the student. And as you can see, this student made 8 mistakes last quarter. So can you now tell me, can you predict, I'm not showing you his score right now. Can all of you tell me what would have been his or her verbal score? Can you guys predict or guess what could have been his or her verbal score? Let's see if you guys can share that or guess that overall. What do you think could have been his verbal score? Let's see if you guys can think about it and tell me. I'll wait to see some responses from you. So you have the baseline in the first case, 7 mistakes, 41, verbal 41. This guy has made 8 mistakes, and I want you to tell me the score. Okay, Lactutor says it's the same. Vishwadeep says it should be about 35 to 36. Azik Zone says 38 to 39. Vijay says 38. Sarthak says greater than 41. Okay, Sarthak, you think one more mistake and still the score should be better? Okay. I'm not saying that's not possible, but still, yeah. 35-ish. He got a lot of questions wrong in the first quarter. Okay, good point, Avichal. Paula says 38. Amitesh says 37. Okay. Soumya says 38. Bhushan says 37. Okay, so I'm getting a good number of responses. Akshit says less than 41. Okay, good point, Akshit. You're right. It's definitely less than 41. Okay, I'm going to tell you that. I'm going to tell you that in a while. I have another snapshot for you of another student who made 9 mistakes. Again, this is a slightly older snapshot. I couldn't get any other one, but still, like 9 mistakes, 5, 1, 1, 2. Think about the verbal score of this student now. Okay. Think about the verbal score of this student who made 9 mistakes. Let's see. Again, I'm asking you a lot of questions, but this is important for you to understand how the algorithm really functions. Okay. Sarthak says the second quarter shows a good score actually. First quarter has ruined a lot of things for this guy. Okay, what should be the ideal approach towards solving the first 10 questions? Like, can we take a little more time and then later compensate by guesstimating the questions from 11 to 20? Tasvi, I'll talk about that, but I don't want to jump the gun on it. I don't completely agree with what you're saying, but yeah, I'll talk about it. Okay, so I'm seeing some responses for the third student also. Many people are saying 32 to 33, some are saying 28, 30, 49. So different responses. Let's review the scores. Okay, so the second guy, which I talked about, the guy with 8 mistakes has scored a 30 on verbal. He just scored 30 on verbal, and the guy with 9 mistakes scored a 21 on verbal. 21 on verbal. Okay, I'm sure some of you might be surprised. Okay, what is happening here? You're talking about 1 extra mistake and the verbal score dropping by 11 points. How is that even possible? And it's just not those 11 points. Okay, look at it in terms of percentile. Okay, I'm just showing you the percentile, and let me write the verbal scores on the bottom as well. Okay, these are the verbal scores of these students. Now look at the percentile differences. 7 mistakes, 93 percentile. 8 mistakes, 58 percentile. And 9 mistakes, and we're talking about 26 percentile. How many of you think now that algorithm is not really the best algorithm? It's really very harsh. It's really harsh algorithm. How many of you think that GMAT is a really harsh algorithm? How many of you think that now? And if you are actually surprised by this, I'm gonna show you something else also. Okay, don't worry. I'm gonna show you something which actually surprised me even after knowing all this. I was like, what the hell is happening? Like, I don't know. Sometimes it's so difficult to look at these numbers, just think about accuracy and predicting how your score will be. It's actually not the right metric to look at. Trust me, guys, accuracy is not the right metric to look at. GMAT is one of the most standardized tests, and it actually gives you your scores based on how you are performing on the right, like across difficulty level of questions. So ability, get difficult question correct, you will get a high score on GMAT. That's what it basically is, nothing else. And it gets very, very clear. Those of you who are not able to understand why this is happening, it gets very clear when you actually look at the difficulty level chart. So I'm again showing the difficulty level chart. Earlier we looked at the accuracy chart for individual quarters, but now I'm showing you the difficulty level chart across the 4 quarters, and it will help you understand what is the key difference in this people. Okay, so Shruti, I'll answer your question as well. Even in the very first quarter, my guess is the student who made this 4 mistakes made at least 2 or 3 mistakes in the first half of the first quarter itself. In the very first 3-4 questions, he made at least 2-3 mistakes, because of which the second half of the first quarter itself was not of that high difficulty, and which is visible from the fact that the average difficulty level in the first quarter that this student achieved was around easy medium, and over here the average difficulty was around medium itself. Okay, with the first student did not do well, because of which in the second half of the first quarter he did not receive as much difficult questions, and that's why the algorithm actually did not give him enough. Like, look at the questions that the student got right. Okay, the questions that the student got right, the difficulty level of that is present in blue over here. Okay, so look at the difficulty level in the second quarter. The student got questions correct, with a good number of questions correct, as I think Sarthak was saying that he made a good recovery in the second quarter, but the questions that he got right were of low difficulty, were of medium low difficulty. And if you look at the questions that the second student got correct, okay, the second student got correct those questions correct which are of a medium high difficulty. So he showed the algorithm that even if you serve me medium high questions, I can still get them correct. I have the capability of getting the medium hard questions correct. And in the third quarter also, both of them had, and if you look at them side by side in the second quarter, there's a significant difference in the difficulty level of the quarter is there. And in the third quarter, if you look at the average difficulty of the questions that the second student got correct, that was significantly high. Again, just give me 1 second, guys. Just a second. Sorry for that. So in the third quarter, the student who got a 41 definitely got much more difficult questions correct. And are you guys now clear about why there is such a huge difference in the scores? If you guys are clear about that, I'm gonna take up a few questions from the comments here. So Shruti, there is no order in which SC, CR and RC questions occur. In fact, I've heard many people getting even 2 RC passages back to back in the very beginning, or 2 RC passages towards the end altogether. It's really random, but generally it is spaced out fairly well. In some rare cases, you will see multiple RCs coming back to back, or multiple SCs coming back to back without any CR or RC, but that's very rare. And in general, there are 3 to 4 passages people get. 4 passages are a lot more common these days. Lac tutor is saying, are there this scoring system related to quant too? Yes, it's actually applicable for quant as well as verbal. It's not just verbal, it's applicable to quant also. And one more person said that does this mean we should give extra time to the first 10 questions? No, guys, that's not what it means. If you say you give extra time to questions, 10 questions, and then you cut corners on the last quarter, second quarter, and third quarter, you don't get questions correct just by giving extra time. You get questions correct by being confident about how to solve them. Okay, just by giving extra time, you can't get questions right. What I'm saying is you should not cut corners in the first quarter. Okay, in the first quarter you should not cut corners. You should cut corners if possible. If you need to cut corners, do it in the last quarter. Okay, what you need to do is improve your understanding of consistency on easy and medium questions so that you don't get them wrong overall. Okay, so Chandramanshu, I'm going to talk about that in the last part. I think the time management strategy in verbal, but I'm gonna give you an idea about how to improve your timing, so don't worry about that. In general, get all hard and low and hard questions right, but I mess up in medium. Mansi, very personal question. Ideally, it should not happen if you are getting all low and hard questions right. If you are making mistakes in medium, you should also be making mistakes in hard questions. So that's a very unusual case. I'll talk about it later, maybe personally. If you think that this was something which was weird, just wait for it. This is another ESR from another student of mine. And look at the number of mistakes done by the student. 3 mistakes, 1 mistake, and 1 mistake. Total of 5 mistakes were made by the student. And the score that you get is 34. And I made 7 mistakes and I had a verbal 41. Now, how do you justify that? When I spoke to this student, that person told me that the 3 mistakes that she made were most likely in the first 3 questions itself because she was not feeling comfortable with the first 3 at all. Okay, so those of you who feel you're actually getting a low score because your performance in the last quarter is poor, look at the performance in the last quarter over here. Okay. Deep is saying, I have been missing last 5 to 6 questions. A timing strategy would be great. So Deep, let me do one thing actually. I'm going to share a webinar that I've conducted on this particular topic itself, which is timing strategy. Again, today we are talking more about how to improve your score. And this session, which this things which I was showing was to help you understand why the last few questions, like if you're thinking the last few questions are actually stopping you from scoring well, that thought process may not be correct. Okay, so I'm just giving you a link to another webinar that if you guys want to attend this, check out this recording later on, you can do that. This will actually take care of the entire timing strategy overall. Okay, so all the questions that you have habitual motion, you will actually get the answers to this question. I'm just going to share it. Just give me 1 second. Let me just type it out. So need to access recording of timing strategy. Here you go, guys. I've just shared it on the chat, and I'll just show it to you here as well. So feel free to click on this, and if you want, you can just bookmark this session recording. And in this session recording, I've actually covered the entire strategy in depth. Okay, today I'm not going to cover in depth, obviously, because my focus today is going to be on improvement strategy, not on the test taking and timing strategy. Okay, so so I think Deep, this will help you. So yes. Okay, Akshay says I will always get the first question wrong. I get very conscious. What should I do? So Akshay, again, consciousness should not be there. You should be attempting every question on its merit. Okay, don't worry a lot about where the question is coming. If you are going about it the right way, if you're confident about your skills, you will end up getting it right. Don't just overthink. Just focus on that question at hand. I know it's easier said than done, but that's what you need to do. And I'll actually show you a use case. One of my student was not able to work on his anxiety issues initially. He scored a 650, and then how he changed his methodology and he improved to a 730 in just 24 days. I'll talk about that. One of the biggest thing that he controlled was anxiety, and we'll talk about how he controlled that. Okay, so that's in the interest of time. Let's move forward because again, I'm not going to talk about a lot about the timing strategy or the testing strategy today. You can review this webinar recording if you want later on. So what I meant to say was, why I showed you this was the last few questions is not as important. What is more important to focus on rather than accuracy is your skill level. Skill is basically the ability to get any question of any difficulty level correct. It doesn't matter which difficulty level you are dealing with. If you are skillful, you will get questions across difficulty levels correct. That's what it means. If you're stuck in the score range of 550 to 650, what it means is you're probably doing well on the easy questions, but when it comes to the medium questions, you don't really do well. Your score is somewhere around that 50 to 60% mark, because of which the algorithm doesn't serve you hard questions. And if you don't, in whichever hard questions, it is struggling with applications. You are not struggling with concepts, because if you were struggling with concepts, you would have done worse on the easy questions as well. So if you're doing well on the easy questions but not so well on the medium and hard questions, it means you need to work on your application skills. Okay, so the approach to get a 700 plus on GMAT is very simple. First thing is you need to make the algorithm easy and medium questions correct. Okay, you do that by getting the easy and medium questions correct. Okay, I have a question from Natasha. I'll definitely take it up. And once you get the easy and medium questions correct, you'll get the hard questions. But the battle is not won there. Remember, if you get easy and medium questions correct, you're telling the algorithm you have the capability of getting the hard questions. It will serve you the hard questions, but you need to get the hard questions right as well. Because if you are looking at a verbal 40 plus kind of a score on GMAT, or anything around quant 50 kind of a score on quant, you need to get a high accuracy in the third quarter, because it's the third quarter hard questions correct. You need to learn the right skills. You need to learn the right skills. That is very critical, guys. Okay, so let me take up a question from Natasha. I'll definitely take it up. And once you get the easy and medium questions correct, you'll get the hard questions. Let's see what's the question here. So by focusing on more on quarter one and cutting corners in the last quarter, don't we risk getting a number questions wrong in the last quarter when we have less time? Will this not hurt our score? So Natasha, I just showed you some examples. The examples were in front of you. I guessed around 4 questions in verbal in my last quarter. I still had a verbal 41. One of my students scored a verbal 44. He guessed last 3 questions. He did not have time for it. He attempted all of them. He guessed last 3 questions. He still had a verbal 44. And by the way, I never say you need to focus more on quarter one. I never ever say that. Okay. People take it otherwise. They say that, okay, they think that, okay, they have to give more time to the quarter one. That's what not I say. Believe in. I don't believe in putting extra time. All I believe in is you should not be cutting corners in quarter one. If you have to cut corners, do that in the last quarter, not in the first, second, or the third quarter. Follow whatever your usual method is. And if your usual method is not getting you to the answer in 2 minutes, you need to do something before the test, not on the day of the test. Nothing can save you in that case. Okay. So Sarthak, very valid points. Logic-based SC takes far greater time than grammar-based SC. Any advice? I'm going to talk about the grammar-based and then logic-based SC. In fact, that is also going to be covered in the webinar today. So a score of 700 plus basically signifies that in easy and medium questions, your score should be really good. Again, you cannot afford to get them wrong. Mostly 90 to 100% accuracy should be there in easy and medium questions. And anything above 50, 60 plus in the hard questions will help. The more it is, the better your score is gonna be with respect to like how far you reach beyond 700. Okay. Now, many people say that I have like, so this is the second concern that a lot of people had. So let me tackle the next concern, that okay, my score is poor because I'm poor in certain topics. I'm not so good in some topics. So what do I do about it? Now, when people are poor, they are performing poorly in specific topics, they work on them. But the very, very big mistake that people do is they will just focus on solving questions. They will just go and do more and more questions on that area. Therefore, the thought process is simple, that okay, if I am not so good in evaluate, or if I am not so good in permutation combination, if I do more questions, if I practice more questions and take more marks, I'm gonna go get better at it. But what you don't realize is if you are weak in something and you only practice questions, you're gonna repeat the same mistakes that you were making earlier. That's something which is not gonna help you as much. In order to improve, what you need to do is you need to first focus on building the right skills in those areas. And once you focus on building the right skills and then you practice questions, the combination of it is going to help you get to that success, get to that 700 plus kind of a score. Now, when I say use the word right skills, a lot of people misunderstand it. What you need to understand, skill is basically a combination of two very important factors. Skill is a combination of concept plus application and application. These two things combined basically is skill. Okay, most people think that skill is nothing but concept. You just need to go through the concept again. That's something which gets focused, but they don't focus on application. Now, what does application mean? Some of you might be thinking, okay, Piyush, you're talking about application so many times. Like, what does it really mean? What do you mean by application? So let's see. If I ask you to solve this question again, this is a very simple question I ask to solve people. Whenever I ask people to solve this question, where there are two linear equations in x and y, you have to find the value of x and y. They simply follow three steps. The very first step is they equate the coefficient of x in both the equations. Maybe must multiply the second equation by 2 and you will be able to do that. In the second step, they will eliminate the value of x, and in the third step, they will substitute the value of y to get the value of x. Now, the beauty of this process is you apply this process on any question, anytime, you will always get to the answer in the right amount of time. It will always get to the answer. Now, just knowing the application, just knowing the method is not right. You need to learn the right method. That is something which is very, very critical. Just give me one more minute, guys. So sorry again. So you need to give yourself the learn the right method, because right method is something which will consistently get you to the answer in all questions. Now, this is something which, like, right methods are still much more easier to learn for quant, but when it comes to verbal especially, people approach it the wrong way all throughout. And I remember my old days as a student, when I was studying and I was really, really struggling with reading comprehension and RC, I came across many different methods of solving questions. And some of the common methods that I came across was, number one, read the first line and the last line of every para and jump to the questions. This was one thing which was told to me. Again, the idea here was, if you read the first line and the last line, you will be able to understand what the paragraph is about. Then you jump to the questions, read the question stem quickly, understand which paragraph is it related to, and then just go to the paragraph and read it properly and answer the question. Don't waste your time on reading every para. That was approach number one, which I heard. Second approach, which I actually stuck to for the longest period of time, that I heard was, read the passage quickly in 2 minutes. Read it as soon as possible. Do it in 2 minutes and take a mental note of what lies where. Okay. And once you understand what lies where, refer back to the passage for every single question. Okay. So that you're able to save time and give more time to the questions. The third approach which I heard was, read the question first so you know what you're looking for, and then focus on reading the passage properly. Now, when I was a student, I focused on all three approaches, but none of them worked for me, because the core principle that all these approaches were focusing on was that the RC patches deal with detailed type of questions mostly, and they all were focused on saving time. They were all shortcut driven. So don't fall for approaches which are not focusing on the right strategy or the right method. Okay, one of the common problems that you will end up getting into if you focus on any of these approaches is, you'll mostly be confused about the meaning of the passage, and if it is not from your comfortable genre, this will happen much more often to you. The second thing which can happen is, you would need to refer to the passage multiple times. Okay, you would need to refer to the passage multiple times, which is something which you should not let happen. Okay, because it ends up consuming more time. And the third thing which will happen with you is, you will be low on confidence when you are marking the answers. So that is another thing which happens if you follow any of the approaches. Now, if you look at the GMAT RC, what is GMAT RC testing you on? 85% of GMAT RC questions are actually inferential in nature. It will either test you on inference, main point, function, structure, or application. Okay, that is something that RC questions focus on. Only 15%, about 15% of them are on detail. Others are completely focused on application. And why am I saying so? If you see the question prompt of any of the RC questions, you will see this question prompt very commonly. Which of the following is the author most likely to agree with? What is the function of the word Renaissance in the first paragraph? Which of the following is against the author's opinion, and stuff like this. Now, all these questions, since they are inferential in nature, it requires a very solid understanding of the passage. You need to read between the lines. You need to understand what is happening. And in 700 level questions, GMAT sets up a trap for you. They will mostly have a global inference in there instead of a local inference. Okay, what is a global and what is a local inference? A local inference is something which is related to a certain part of the passage only. Now, if you're just following any of the approaches which I stated earlier, you will actually get stuck with this local inference, because you will read only some part of the passage very quickly, and you will see an option choice which is talking about that part, and you will end up marking that as an answer, which is not the correct answer. But if you are understanding the passage properly, you will actually understand the global inference also, and you will be able to get the answers correct. Okay, so what are the right methods to solve? Some of you were asking what are the right methods to solve. So in sentence correction, the most effective method to get a sentence correction question correct is the meaning based approach. You need to focus on the meaning driven approach to get the questions right. In CR, on the other hand, the right approach to follow is the critical pre-thinking approach. Okay, and now pre-thinking doesn't mean that you have to pre-think the answer. Pre-thinking basically means you need to pre-think as you read. So when you are reading, you need to understand the structure, you need to understand the conclusion, you need to understand the scope of the argument, and that's enough for pre-thinking. In RC, you have to do involved and evolved reading. You have to understand and read between the lines. In DS, you have to draw the right inferences from the question stem before moving on to the statement analysis. And in PS, you have to follow a 3-step process that we teach at GMATWhiz, obviously. So these are some methods that you have to follow in order to get the questions right. Okay. Now, I interact with students on a daily basis, as I said earlier. And when I talk to people, I ask them, okay, you're not able to reach your target score. So probably there's a problem with the method. These are the methods that you should follow. And they tell me, okay, I am actually following the meaning-based approach. I have been following this approach from the very beginning. Why am I still struggling? I'm doing that from the very first day. Why is my score still not improving? Okay. Now, when I hear this, when I hear it out, most of the cases I give them a question to solve right in front of me. And the moment I give them a question to solve, both of us end up realizing, when they're solving the question right in front of me, both of us end up realizing that their understanding of the approach itself is not correct. For according to them, meaning based approach is just about thinking the meaning of the sentence when they're reading the sentence, but that's not all about meaning based approach. There are multiple steps to it. There are multiple steps to pre-thinking. There are multiple steps to the drawing inference skill for DS and in quant also. We need to do it right. And in order to help you understand what is the right approach and what is the wrong understanding of meaning based approach people have, I have a question in front of you. This is an official GMAT question. I want you guys to solve this. Give it a try. I'm going to solve this question also, but I'm not going to focus on this question a lot. I'm going to focus more on the process than the right answer, to be very honest. So, but in order for you to relate to what I'm doing, I just want you guys to take a stab at this question first, and then I'm going to talk about how meaning-based approach works in this question. Okay, so I'm going to mute myself. I'm going to remove, I'm going to take off my video from the live session right now for a couple of minutes. You have a couple of minutes to solve this, and don't put your responses in the chat. I'll let you know when you guys should put your responses in the chat. Okay, so I'm gonna be muted for a couple of minutes. All the best for this question. Okay, guys. So now, if you want, you can put your responses in the comments here. I'll be more than happy to see them. I have some question from Hans. Hans says, "Was there some explanation on how to ideally approach the studying of the quant part?" So, Hans, I'm going to talk about that. Don't worry. Like, Estelle is talking about what you should not be doing and what. And then we'll talk about what you should be doing. So I'll talk about the strategy for quant as well as verbal. How should you strategize your prep in order to improve your GMAT score? So I'll help you understand how to create a study plan, how to create all of that. Okay. Okay. Great. I see some responses already. Curious says C. Anirudh says it is E. Okay. Shaurya also says C. Rupesh says it's C. Okay. A lot of people going for C. Vijay says it is E. Okay, Vijay. What about others? Pallavi says it is E. Azikon says C. Okay. Akshit says C. Shubham also goes for C. Lactutor says it's E. Okay, so I have good number of responses, guys. Again, I'm going to reiterate the fact the session is not about learning how to solve this particular SE question. It's more about learning to solve any SE question or understanding, more importantly, what is the right approach? What is the difference between the right approach? So I'm going to use the meaning-based approach in front of you. And what I want you guys to do is think about the approach that you followed and compare it with my approach and see if you think you're really thinking about the meaning, are you doing it or not? Okay, so let's read this sentence. A substance. Okay, so the sentence is talking about a substance most likely. Let's see. Derived from the Madagascar periwinkle. Okay, so the moment I see derived from the Madagascar periwinkle, I will stop. So at GMATWhiz, we say that if you have to focus on the meaning of the sentence, you have to stop at certain pause points. There are certain pause points where you need to stop. And at each of these pause points, you need to ask a certain set of questions. So one of these pause points is verb-like words, words that look like verbs, but may or may not act as verbs. Another is relative pronouns. Another one is connectors, and another one is contextual words. Okay, these are four pause points that we talk about, and we will definitely we will definitely talk about what to do at all these pause points. But in the entire course of GMATWhiz, we have around 8 hour long module dedicated to it. So obviously we cannot be very like detailed about the pause points here, but I'll just quickly talk to you about them. So derived is a pause point. So we will stop at derived, and the first question that we will ask is derived a verb or a modifier? What is the role of derived in the sentence? So if you look at derived, the substance is basically not doing the action of derived. So in GMATWhiz, we have a two-step process to actually identify whether it's a verb-like word is a verb or a modifier, because it's very important to understand whether it is a verb or a modifier. Otherwise, you might as well make a lot of mistakes. Okay, so in this case, derived is a modifier because the substance is not doing the action of deriving. It's done by someone else. So a substance derived from the Madagascar periwinkle, this piece of information is an additional piece of information about the substance. Okay, it tells us that the substance was derived from Madagascar periwinkle. Let's read further. Which has proved useful in decreasing mortality among leukemia patients. So the moment I see this which, this is a relative pronoun, so I'll wait and ask, what is the which referring to? What is the which referring to? Tell me, guys, what do you think is which referring to? Is it the substance that it is referring to, or is it the Madagascar periwinkle? Let's call it MP. Okay, is it the MP which it is referring to, or is it the substance that which is referring to? What has proved useful in decreasing mortality? Think about it. Okay, think about it. What is it referring to, guys? What do you think? Let's see some responses from you. What do you think is this which referring to? Okay, Akshit says Madagascar periwinkle. Okay, MP. Okay, it's close to that MP. Chandramanshu says it's substance. Sumit says it's the substance. But isn't which place close to the MP? So actually, in this sentence, if you see, it is ambiguous. Which can actually make sense with MP. It can actually make sense with the substance. But if you think about the meaning of the sentence, I'll actually talk about the meaning, and we'll understand why it is talking about the substance and not the MP. Okay, let's see. Is cultivated in China. What is cultivated in China? Clearly, it is referring to the substance. Okay, so the substance is cultivated in China. The moment I read this part, what is cultivated in China? Is it the? And I need to ask myself. Grammatically, it seems like talking about the substance, but it is what is actually cultivated in China. Is it the substance or the MP? If you think about it, It should be MP that is cultivated in China. It should not be the substance. A substance cannot be cultivated. A substance cannot be cultivated. You need to understand that. What can be cultivated is the Madagascar periwinkle. That's probably what it should mean. But the way it is constructed, it seems like it means to say, it illogically communicates that a substance is cultivated in China. Okay, so that there is a problem. Definitely, that there is a problem. I cannot say that a substance is cultivated. So it says the substance is cultivated in China as part of a program. So this is cultivated as part of a program to integrate traditional herbal medicine into contemporary style of healthcare. So if you look at this part, you'll be able to contextualize that. If you think about it, this substance, this basically the goal here is to integrate this thing into herbal medicine, to integrate traditional herbal medicine into contemporary style of healthcare. So if you think about the entire meaning, this substance is basically has proved helpful in decreasing mortality among leukemia patients, and probably that's why it is going to be taken as a part of program to integrate the herbal medicine. So this which is actually referring to the substance, and this is cultivated should be actually referring to the Madagascar periwinkle. Okay, so that is the error with choice A. Now tell me, how many of you, when you are reading the sentence for the first time, I'm talking about talking with you just for the first read, how many of you, when you are reading this sentence for the first time, think about this part that is cultivated is actually let me change the question. How many of you, when you are reading the sentence for the first time, did the same level of meaning analysis as I did right now? You also broke the sentence just like I did, and you also did the same level of meaning analysis just like I did right now. How many of you did that? Let's see a quick yes no from you. How many of you did that? Quick yes no, guys. And please be honest with me here. Now I know what some of you might be thinking, that okay, Piyush, you have done this. Probably you had no time constraint. You had freedom of time, so you probably did all of it. But how do I do it in 2 minutes? Is it possible? How many of you did it? Let's see. Quick yes no, guys. Okay, Rashmi says I did not. Ajikon says no. Chandramanshu says yes. Okay, good, Chandramanshu. Happy to know that. What about others? Okay, but I cut corners to reach the answer. Shoya says okay. Don't do that, Shoya. Meaning has to be focused on the answers also. In fact, if you do the meaning analysis properly, you'll be able to identify all the errors mostly, and you'll be also able to understand what is probably the correct answer. Okay, Archit says no. Okay. So I do this with many people. I ask them to solve questions, not just this one, any question which is on the C. I see that in most of the cases, people don't follow the meaning-based approach as closely. They don't pause, they don't contextualize. Even if they contextualize only for certain pieces. They contextualize only a bit. They don't do it entirely for every single thing. Okay, just make sure that you are focusing on the right approach the right way. And see, this time I was explaining it to you, so I had taken more time. When I learned this approach for the very first time, I was taking 4 minutes to get a SC question right. I was taking 4 minutes, but I knew that my accuracy was consistent. I was consistently getting a high accuracy with this approach. I stuck to this approach, and I was able to bring down this time to 3 minutes, to 2.5 minutes, to 2 minutes over a period of time. And I just had to solve about 200 odd questions to reach there. When I took my GMAT, I was able to solve each SC question in 1 minute and 15 seconds on an average. And my SC percentile was 93 or 94, one of the two. I don't remember exactly, but it was either one of 93, 94. Okay. And I was able to solve the questions in 1 minute, 15 seconds. And I focused on the meaning-based approach for every single question. The more you do it, the more easier it gets, because you kind of start reading in that way all the time. Okay, so that's the right approach that you need to follow. Now, if you are focused on the underlying internet meaning, this is the meaning that you would have received. Now, if I look at the accuracy on GMAT Club on this question, most of the people, about 36% of them, ended up marking the correct answer as choice C, which was the popular choice over here as well. Okay, so it is very, very important that you actually get the meaning correct, because if you look at this choice clearly says that the derivative is has proved useful in decreasing mortality. But then this choice actually says that this derivative is cultivated in China, but that is incorrect. The derivative, the substance is not cultivated in China. It is the Madagascar periwinkle which is cultivated in China. The correct answer over here is choice E, because this choice says that the Madagascar periwinkle is cultivated. This Madagascar periwinkle is cultivated in China, and a derivative of which this derivative has been proved useful. So it takes care of both the things. Okay, so Laurent, you're right, which is generally used for a noun preceding the comma, not for a clause. That's true. So in this case also, if you see, which is talking about a derivative over here. Okay, so now, so we understand what is the meaning based approach now, but the problem lies where the problem lies is the way people study. When they start preparing topics in the wrong way. The most common focus of students when they're learning any topic, when I say a topic, I mean, let's say modifiers or prime numbers or circles or anything basically. Okay, anything basically. If you look at that, then any topic that people learn, they actually focus on, first step that they do is they learn the concepts. That's something which is done by everyone. But one thing which people miss, which is actually the second stage of learning, is they don't learn a right approach. They don't master a methodical approach to solve the question right away. They don't do that. Okay, that ideally is the second step. After you have learned the concepts, you need to focus on mastering the methodical approach, and then only you can go to step 3, stage 3, which is to practice questions. For most people, if you focus on this, you will actually get to a 700 levels, a 700 plus score. But for most people, their methodology is simple. They jump from stage 1 to stage 3. They miss the stage of learning the methodical approach, and that's when they repeat a lot of mistakes. Just give me 1 minute, guys. I need to drink some water. Just give me 1 second. I'll be muted in a short time. Okay, yeah. So they actually they don't focus on learning the right methodical approach. And when you don't or focus on learning the right methodical approach, after each concept, you end up repeating the same mistakes and you end up getting stuck in the zone of 600 to 650. So what is very important is, whenever you learn the right concept, you also need to, at the very moment, also learn what is the best method to solve the question at that very moment. If you don't learn it at that very moment, it is very difficult to improve upon it later on. Okay, so if you are working on prime numbers for now, you need to learn what are the right methods to solve prime number related questions. If you're working on sentence correction, you need to learn what is the right method to apply sentence correction approach. If you are working on modifiers, it is important to learn how do you apply modifiers on sentence correction questions. Okay, that's what you need to do. Now, it is not just enough to know the approach. Okay, I talked about the approach. Most of you probably knew what is the meaning based approach. Most of you would have heard it about it for sure. But when it comes to applying or mastering the approach, you have to be very, very consistent with it. You have to focus on doing it as a conscious exercise, I'll put it. And the way to do it is very simple. The first thing that you need to do is you need to refer to solutions following a consistent and logical method. Focus on these two words: consistent and logical method. Many a times when I talk to students, they come to me and they tell me that, okay, I have been focusing on learning, but this is the method that I'm using. So sometimes I find their method is not logical. It's more shortcut focus. So first thing is logical method you have to follow. Also, you have to do one more thing you have to do is that the solutions that you are referring to should have consistently been providing the solutions in that logical method itself. So for example, if you are solving a question and then you see a solution which only explains the or provides the analysis of the wrong answer choices, it is not going to help you learn the meaning based approach. What is going to help you learn the meaning based approach is that you should have solutions which provide you the meaning of the sentence in the same way that we discussed. So this is very, very critical. The most critical part is you need to refer to solutions following a consistent and methodical approach. And it's not just enough to have the solutions in the consistent and methodical approach. You need to refer to them also. This is also very important, because I've seen people doing this mistake, And trust me, guys, this is not just mistakes with other students. This mistake is done by many people, including my own students. When I tell them to refer to solutions, they only refer to solutions when they get the question wrong. You need to even refer to the solutions even if you get a question right, because it is not just enough to get it right, it is important that you get it right for the right reasons. So make sure you're referring to the solution irrespective of whether you get the question right. And when you're doing that, spend 80% of your time, 80% of your energy should be spent on reviewing the sentence, argument, or passage analysis. Don't spend your time just on the answer choice analysis. I've seen that with students many a times. They will only spend their energy on the answer choices. They will only review the questions that they got, answers that they got wrong, or the ones that they marked overall. So important, you need to analyze the sentence, argument, or the passage. You need to match your understanding. You need to draw the variances in your approach versus the right approach. And when you draw these variances from your approach with the right approach, that's when you improve your score. This is very, very critical, guys. You need to understand this. And I'm going to show you with an example. So for example, the same question that we discussed today, this is the way in which we teach you in GMATWhiz. This is the level of detail that you will see with every single solution in GMATWhiz. So what you need to do is, let's say, first thing you will do is you will see the solution. When you're reading the solution, you will stop over here and you will ask yourself, question number one, did I stop at MP? Did I stop at MP or not? If you did not stop at MP, then even if you have gotten the question correct, you have made a mistake. That is something you need to tell yourself for sure. So this is the first checkpoint. You read the solution, you ask yourself, the solution says I need to stop here. It is broken down at this point. Did I stop here or not? If you did not, then it's a mistake. The second question that you will ask yourself is, you will read this entire part and you will actually make sure that you have the same understanding over here, which is there in the meaning provided over here. So derived is modifying the noun substance. Did I understand this part or did I not understand this part? If you did not understand this part, then you have made another mistake. And remember, you need to ask yourself the question that when I was doing this, were I able to come to the same level of understanding in the first read itself or not? If you were not able to come up with the same level of understanding in the first read itself, you are spending extra time because you're not following the method. If you are following the method properly, you will be able to come up with the same level of understanding in the first read itself. Okay, and then you will similarly ask, did I break down at this point? Did I think about that, which is an ambiguous antecedent, and so on? So similarly, you will actually look at the solution properly. You will actually check out each and every part of the solution and focus 80% of your time on the sentence analysis. Because if you analyze the sentence properly, you will be able to get the question right. You will not get stuck with two close choices. And that's the most important thing that you need to do in order to solve the problem of two close choices. Okay. Now, I wanted to talk about critical reasoning as well, but we are short on time. So let's move forward. So what I'm trying to say is that mastering the right approach holds the key. And I'm going to now talk about Akshat. He's one of our students who improved tremendously from a 650 to 730 in just 24 days. Okay. And when I actually when I actually talked to him over our interview, when he scored a 730, there were certain things that he shared about his thought process in this duration, in this 24 days that he had. So I'm going to share some inputs from his discussion over here. And I'm also going to share the link of his interview. If anyone of you wants to watch his entire interview, you guys can always click on this link and watch it out. But I'm going to just quickly run you through what was the key things that he talked about in his interview. So he said that during this 24 days, I improved my understanding of the methodologies. For example, in GMATWhiz, we teach a framework-driven pre-thinking approach for CR. He worked on improving his understanding of the methodologies. He reviewed each and every solution. In order to do that, he reviewed each and every solution in depth for even the questions that he was getting right. He made sure that his methodologies are perfect. Because if you are at a 650 kind of a range, you are not going wrong with the concepts. It's wrong. You are going wrong with the methods that you're following. And when he was doing that, he always also ensured that with the incorrect answers, whenever he was eliminating an answer which was incorrect, he used to identify the patterns in the incorrect answers. That, okay, I eliminated this because I felt this is out of scope, I felt this is distorted, or I felt this is irrelevant. He also is used to match this understanding of the incorrect answers with the solutions which were provided to ensure that he was able to mark the incorrect answers for the right reasons as well. So he was doing two things. He was ensuring that his methodologies are perfect, and he was also making sure that he was able to identify the patterns in the incorrect choices. Now at GMATWhiz, we make sure that we classify each answer choice against each of the patterns. So it was made easy for him to like once he was doing that, and then he revisited the weak areas that were there. So for example, he was weak in, let's say, modifiers. He revisited those areas from the course, and then he focused on managing his anxiety, and this actually helped him manage his anxiety much better, because it gave him the confidence that, okay, I know why the incorrect answers are incorrect. I've worked on my weak areas as well, so there's no reason why I cannot get that score on the test day. In fact, when he was starting the test, he felt a little anxious, a little initially, but he uh, stopped for a moment. He took a deep breath and told, okay, whatever has happened has happened. In fact, in the very first quarter, he made a couple of mistakes, but he made sure that he bounces back from there. And he focused a lot on the next questions, did his best, and ended up with a 730 on that day. Okay, so if you want, you can watch his success story. This is the link. Later on, you can check it out yourself. So there's an in-depth interview which was conducted. And not just this guy, many of our students have done this. Rajiv, for example, was stuck at a 680 even after preparing for 1.5 years. And he was able to improve his score to a 740, which is a significant improvement by focusing on the right method. He changed his approach. Similarly, Vamsi was stuck at 570 after 10 months of prep with one of the top institutes, and he was able to improve his score to a 720 by working on the right methodologies. So if you look at any of the success stories, the key is you need to focus on the right methods. So now I'm going to talk about how can you plan your studies, how can you do all of it. So when you're thinking about your improvement, you need to plan your studies in three ways. Okay, first stage is planning stage. Again, this is not really a learning stage, this is just for planning. Many people just dive right into working on the second attempt or working on the reattempt, third attempt, or whatever. They don't think about what's going on because they're sometimes so close to it, they're not able to look at it as at a distance and understand what's going wrong with their prep. So it's very, very critical that you spend a lot of time on planning your studies also. Okay, it's very critical that you plan the studies properly, and then you should jump into the learning stage where you will start learning, focusing on improving the weak areas and all of it, and where this is where you will learn the application as well, and then you need to move to the solidifying stage. So I'm going to talk about these three stages all together, but remember, these are for execution and this stage is for planning only. So I'm going to tell you how to plan for these two stages and what to do exactly in these two stages. Okay, but having said that, it's very easy for me to tell this for people who are scoring less than 670, but if you are already scoring more than 670 or 670 even, then there are many factors to be considered in order to create the right plan. If it is important to understand what is the time available with you, it is important to understand what is the target score that you have, because again, depending on the target score, the time required to like improve will be very different. It is also important to understand your strengths and weaknesses. It is important to understand the resources that you have utilized, because if you have utilized a set of resources, then obviously your planning has to be done in a different way. It is important to understand which methods are you using today. If you're using the meaning-based approach already for SC, then probably you don't need to work on it. But if you're not using it, then the approach will be very different. And also it is important to understand what is your learning style. Do you like to learn on your own? Do you prefer to learn with a tutor? How do you prefer to learn? So all these factors are taken into account. So if you are scoring 670 or more, so I would recommend you to discuss this one-on-one with me, because it becomes difficult otherwise to take all these factors into account. So please feel free to discuss one-on-one with me to learn this. Just a second, I will just get you the right link. Just 1 minute, guys. Yeah. So this is, I'm going to share a link over here. So you guys can use this link to schedule a call. I'm going to just flash this link on the screen also. Just a second. Yeah. So I'm just flashing this link on the screen. So any of you want to basically go ahead and have a one-on-one word with me, please feel free to use this link to schedule a call if you're scoring 670 or more. Then I will be able to understand more about your prep in depth till now, and then I can actually help you plan your studies much more like effectively. All right. So feel free to schedule a call with me if you are scoring 670 or more. And let's now talk about the planning stage for other people. So how do you plan your studies? How do you plan your improvement over here? So first thing is, how should you start? Okay. So remember, the ideal thing to do is focus on one section at a time. Okay. Focus on one section at a time, not on both sections at the same time. If you are a working professional and if you are studying part-time, if you're studying full-time, you can focus on both sections at the same time. Give the right amount of effort to the right sections. For example, if you're weaker in verbal, you probably need to spend more time on verbal. About 60-70% of your time should go on verbal, and also dependent on how good you are in quant in that case. So if you are a working professional, it is better to focus on just one section. Don't work on both the sections. Retaker should work on the weaker section first. So if you're a retaker, you should work on your weaker section first. Now, the approach for different sections is different. Your approach for verbal should be different. Your approach for quant should be different. What should be your approach for verbal? Your approach for verbal should be, you should take up one module at a time. Don't work on both all the three modules at once. I've seen this mistake being done by many people. Many people say that, okay, I'm going to work on SC, CR, and RC parallelly because I feel that I'm going to lose touch from one area. See, what I mean to say is, in the learning stage, in the plan, as I said, there are two stages of learning and solidifying. In the solidifying stage, you can work on all three areas parallelly. That's okay. But if you are having gaps in a particular area, a topic, let's say SC, it is better that you focus and give your attention to that topic first, that module first. Okay, that is very, very important. So work on one module at a time, not all three modules at once. In quant, on the other hand, you need to work on one topic at a time. Okay. And topics, by topics, I mean prime numbers, functions, circle, profit and loss, etc. Okay. Is this part clear to all of you? Till this part, is it clear to all of you? Quick yes, no here. Till this part, is it clear to all of you guys? Quick yes, no here. Till this part, is everything clear to all of you guys? I just want to see a few yes, no. And for some time, I have been doing a monologue, so just want to ensure that all of you are with me here as well. Quick yes, no, guys. Till this part, everything is clear to you? Feel free to let me know if everything is clear till this part. If not, let me know. Let's see a few yeses or no's. That's okay, but just make sure. Okay, Tanu says yes. Okay. Soumya says yes. Sikon says yes. Good. Glad to see the responses. So, okay. So now let's talk about verbal first in that case. So how do you improve your verbal score? How do you improve that? So first thing that you do is you create a benchmark of 70 percentile and take a module-wise test for SC, CR, and RC. So take a module-wise test for SC, module test for SC, then for CR, and then for RC, and take about 25-30 questions in each of them. Okay. And then if you get a score of less than 70 percentile in that topic, then that module, then it is in group 1. Okay, that's a weaker area. And if you actually get a score of more than 70 percentile, that's in group 2. Okay, so let's take an example. For example, if you took the test and this is the scores that you get, like 80%, 30%, and 50%. So obviously, strong area is SC, which is in group 2, and weak areas are CR and RC. So you should work on CR and RC first, and then you should work on sentence correction. So that is how you should follow the approach. So take up this approach. And how do you tackle the modules in the weak area? Let's talk about it first. Then we'll talk about how to tackle the modules on a strong area. So what you need to do is first do sectional tests of like you've already done the sectional test while identifying it. That's good. You can use that data. Understand in which topics your score is less than 60%. So topics, I mean, for example, in CR, it will be assumption, evaluate, boldface, paradox. In SC, it will be modifiers and all of that. So identify in which topics your score is less than 60% and revise those concepts to solidify your understanding first. Because if your score is less than 70, there is a very high chance that you're not so good in certain type of questions. So it is very important that you work on solidifying your understanding of those concepts first. Okay. And when you are learning those concepts, focus also on learning the application as well. All right. Focus on learning the application of concepts after improving your conceptual gaps. So how do you improve your and I'll talk about how to focus on learning application right now for the strong area at the same time, so don't worry about it. So how much time do you need to improve on your weak areas? About 30 to 40 hours if you spend on your weak areas in one particular module. If SC is a weak area, if you spend 30-40 hours on doing it, working on it, you can improve your verbal score by about 4 points, and your overall GMAT score will increase by about 30 points by doing that. Now, how do you tackle modules from a strong area? In order to tackle modules from a strong area, you need to focus on learning the right approach. Because if your module is in a strong area, then probably the approach is the only thing that you can improve. So, for example, in CR, this is the approach, pre-thinking approach that you follow. In SC, you need to follow the meaning-based approach, which we already talked about. So, how do you learn the right approach? Step one, understand the method. Understand the method really well. So, for just like today, I told you about the meaning-based approach. How is the meaning-based approach supposed to be used? So, first, understand it properly, not just know about it, understand it properly. Then you take up 15 questions by taking just one question at a time. Don't do all 15 questions at once. Just do one question at a time in those 15 questions. Okay. The idea is you should be able to understand and apply that method properly. And then you review the explanations properly for each of them before moving on to the next question and avoid deviations from the method. For example, this is the CR question. Let's say you solved. Okay, again, I'm not asking you to solve this question right now. But let's say this is the CR question that you solved. Okay, on the GMATWhiz platform, you will see that in the solution in step one, we are analyzing the stimulus. So what you will do is you will tell yourself that, okay, I have understood the method. The method says that first you have to analyze the stimulus and the question stem to understand the scope. Okay, so did I actually understand the scope or not? How do I know it? Let's see. So you will see that, okay, after the first sentence, this is the analysis that we have come up with. So you will ask yourself that when I was reading the argument, did I come up with the same level of analysis after reading the first sentence? Did I tell myself that, okay, area of currently cultivated or explored land should be equal to area of unexplored land? Did I come up with this analysis or not? If you did not, then you have made a mistake. There is a scope for improvement of the methodology. Similarly, you'll read the second sentence again, and then you'll ask yourself that when I read the second sentence, when I was solving the question, did I draw this inference, this particular inference which is mentioned over here? If I did not, then you have still not understood the method. You have to work on it a little more. And this way, you will come up with this understanding. Okay, so this is very, very critical for you to do. Now, when I speak to people, I kind of come across these questions that, okay, how do I get this methodical solutions? How do I get solutions which tell me a methodical way? Because in most of the solutions that I refer to, I see they mention why a particular choice is wrong and why a particular choice is right, but it's not as methodical as you're talking about. And that's why we came up with this idea of methodical solutions in GMATWhiz, and every single solution that we provide in GMATWhiz is using a methodical approach, and we spend twice the amount of time to write the solutions rather on to make sure that each solution is very, very methodical. And in order to do that, we came up with the idea of concept booster, where what we do is we give you one question at a time to solve, not more than one, just one question at a time to solve. In the concept booster, it is a set of hand-picked questions on each topic. For example, if you're doing modifiers, you will see a set of questions on modifiers. Let's say if there are 6 or 7 questions, we will ensure that each one of the questions is of different type and covering the various ways in which this particular, so again, there are different modifiers, let's say relative pronoun modifier. So if there are 6 or 7 questions on relative pronoun modifier, each of these questions will test a different aspect of these relative pronoun modifiers. So you will be solving only one question at a time in the concept boosters, which will be followed by a very detailed solution. So you will analyze the solution and identify the gaps in your application before moving forward. Okay. So that's how you do it, and it is there in every single part of the course, not just verbal, it is there in quant as well. For example, in prime numbers, you have this 3 video lectures where we teach you the concepts, and then you have this concept boosters where we teach you how to apply these concepts. Okay, so it's there in every single part of the course. So you have to first learn the approach. Then when it comes to mastering the approach, you need to practice 30-40 questions. Now, when you're practicing this 30-40 questions, so in order to learn the approach, you have done 15 questions already, one at a time, as I said. Now, if you're practicing this 30-40 questions, you can probably take sets of 10 questions each in each test, but ensure that you're still reviewing the solution. You're still reviewing the solution for every single question. Otherwise, it's not going to help you. And the idea of solving these 30-40 questions is to internalize the process that will help you to reduce the timing. Okay, that is something which is very, very important. Okay, so time required to improve your strong area. So if there is one module in your strong area, around 15 to 20 hours will be required to improve it. That will increase your verbal and overall score. So if you have two modules in your group 2, which is your strong area, you'll probably need 30-40 hours of time there. And for 4 points of improvement you can get easily with this effort, and 30 points of overall verbal score improvement you can get. Okay, now let's talk about improving quant. But anyone has any questions till now about this part of verbal? Anyone has any questions? Please feel free to put across in the comments here. So I have a question from InfoGuru. Some good books, please. So if you want to refer to books, I would recommend maybe for CR Power Score Bible, and for other areas as C and RC Manhattan. But again, books do not give you feedback. In books, mostly, I have not seen a very consistent methodologies being followed. So you can probably check out the GMATWhiz course if you want to go through a more methodical approach and a more personalized offering. So that's up to you. But if you're looking at books, these are some books that you can check out. Okay. Anyone has any questions about verbal strategy till now? Feel free to ask me. I'll move to quant now then. So, okay, I don't see any questions as of now. So let's look at quant then. So in quant, what you need to do? First, you need to identify the areas of improvement in quant. Okay. Now, how do you do that? Take a quiz of 30 questions for each of number properties, algebra, word problems, and geometry. Okay. Do that for each of those sections. Okay. And identify whether you need to work on concept and application or just on application. Identify that. Okay. How do you identify that? If your score is less than 60% in a topic, again, I'm talking about topics here. Topics would basically mean prime numbers, triangles, permutation combination, and etc. So identify what is your score in each topic. Okay, and once you identify what is your score in each topic, classify them as conceptual gaps or application gaps. If your score is less than 60%, it basically means you have conceptual gaps in that particular topic. Okay, if your score is between 60 and 85%, you have only application gaps in those topics. Okay, so I'm saying I gave GMAT practice test, but my verbal weak areas varied. My verbal is usually 30 to 34. So if your weak areas are varying, Soumya, most likely it's because of lack of consistent methodology, nothing else. You need to work on all three areas from the perspective of application and methodology, nothing else. Okay, and feel free to discuss one-on-one with me if you want to talk about in depth overall. So again, you need to classify something as conceptual gaps and application gaps. Now, and in GMATWhiz, we allow you to do that very easily. On our dashboard, you can actually go to any topic, select any topic, and it will show you your accuracies across all the topics. For example, if I select geometry and I click on show more, it will show me my accuracy, overall accuracy in each topic. Okay, you can see in coordinate geometry what is the score, 3D geometry what is the score, and so on. So you can easily classify each topic into your strong or weak area if you want to do that. Once you have done that, you need to tackle these areas very differently. The areas where you are having conceptual gaps, you need to work in 3 steps. First thing you need to do is learn the concepts and formulas, because probably there are certain special properties that you are not aware of. So just make sure you work on that. Then you learn how to solve questions from that particular topic. Basically, this is the methodical part, the method, the right method you need to learn. And then you need to practice about 15 to 20 questions on that topic. If there are application gaps in a topic, where basically means if you are between 60 to 85%, you need to learn only how to solve the question methodically. Your concepts and formulas are in place. You don't need to worry about them. You need to just think about how to learn it methodically, solve it methodically. That's what you need to work on. And then practice about 10-15 questions on using that methodology. Okay, so that is something which is important. So in InfoGuru, we provide a full course on GMAT, which is for quant and verbal. So you can check it out later on the website. So once you're done with that, you understand that, okay, this is how you need to do, then arrange the topics in this right order. So this is the order that you should follow. A lot of people say that, okay, you should do word number properties first, and then you work on word problems, and you work on algebra. I don't agree with that. What I say is you just work on these topics in this order. For example, you should work on number basics first, and then on fractions and decimals, because these are more fundamental topics. So if your score is more than 85% in any of these, you don't need to work on them at all. Okay, let's say in estimation rounding, your score is between 60 and 85. So it is an application gap. So you will only work on the right method. Then linear equation, you have a concept gap. Then you need to work on the concepts also, as I said earlier. Similarly, in quadratic equations, there is no gap, so you can leave it. exponents no gap, and this is how you go about doing it on your like in your prep. Okay, so don't just work on one module at a time, work on topics at a time. Now how can GMATWhiz help? If you don't want to do all of this exercise yourself, all you have to do is focus on GMATWhiz platform, because it's a very personalized course. It's an AI driven personalized course. We have diagnostic quizzes before every topic which is there, or every set of topics which are there. And sorry guys, and at the end of the diagnostic quiz, the Wiz identifies concepts that you already know. If you know the concepts, it takes out those concepts, and it only asks to focus your energy on the concepts that you're weak in. Okay, and then you go through the concept booster lessons to improve your methodology. Now how much time do you need to improve on basically your con section? You need about, for 1 point of improvement, 8 to 10 hours of effort will be required. And if you want to improve by about 3 to 4 points in QA, and again, this effort is assuming that you will be working on GMATWhiz platform, because in many cases on other platforms you may not be able to improve as much in the same amount of time, because the content may not be as personalized. But in our case, the content is much more personalized. So if you want to improve by 3 to 4 points on QA, which is quant, it will help you to improve your quant's overall score by about 20 to 40 points, and your time required will be about 25 to 40 hours. Okay, so to summarize everything, you need to start working on quant or verbal, one of the two. In verbal, create 2 groups. Group 1, where your weak areas lie. Group 2, where your strong areas lie. For strong areas, you need to just work on building the right application skill. For your weak areas, you need to work on concepts as well as application. In about 60-80 hours of effort, you should be able to see an improvement of about 8 points, which will lead you to an improvement of about 60 points overall. Then step 3 is, for quant, you need to work on weak concepts, and this should take you about 25-40 hours to improve your score by about 40 points. Okay, with that, I kind of come to the end of this webinar. If you have any questions right now, you can ask me now. I'm opening it to the open-ended Q&A. And if you really like the webinar, if you felt that you learned something from the webinar, please feel free to give it a like, hit the like button, and that way more and more people will be able to see the webinar later on. So feel free to like the webinar if you actually learn something from the webinar. And if you want to enroll for the free trial of GMATWhiz, or if you want to actually just a second, if you want to actually see how the personalized course works, you can actually use this link over here. Okay, so here you go, I have this link, so you can actually use the free trial to get a free study plan also. Okay. Oh, I have one question from Archit, I guess. Archit says, are we allowed to schedule call for queries? I'm new to GMAT. So, Archit, our student support team works in a different way. If you have queries on questions, I'm not sure which queries you're talking about, but if you're talking about subject matter queries, we have forums attached to our questions. You can do it there. But if you have queries about your GMAT prep, you can connect with me. That's okay. If you're new to GMAT also, you can still connect with me. It's not like I can only discuss with people who have to improve. If you are new to GMAT and if you want to improve your scores, you need some help on your strategy part, feel free to reach out to me. That's all right. Okay, I'm going to share the link for scheduling a call with me also here. Okay, so this is the link you can use to schedule the call. Okay, so if you have any other questions, I'm here with you guys. You can post your queries here in the comments. I'll be more than happy to take it up. Okay, thank you, Soumya. I hope the webinar was helpful. Okay, thank you, Lag Tutor. I don't know what's your name, but yeah. Okay. Good, Archit. Anyone else has any questions for me? Okay, how to keep the momentum throughout the journey? Good question, Ankit. It's a very important question. how to keep the momentum. Now, in order to keep the momentum, one thing is very, very important is you need to have a proper plan of action in place. That okay, this is what I'm gonna do in key week 1, this is what I'm gonna do in week 2, and this is what I'm gonna do in week 3, and so on. So that's something which is very important, and that's why we kind of always give this personalized study plan to our students so that they can work on it. Okay, so make sure that you have that, number one. Number two, create clear targets for yourself. That okay, I need to reach to this particular score level by this date, and always continuously check that kind of a like if you're actually reaching there or not. And another thing that you can do is you can always be in touch with good mentors. They can actually help you maintain that momentum and understand whether you are making you understand if you are actually working in the right direction or not. That's something you can definitely look at. Shaurya is asking, do you offer admission consulting as well? Yes, Shaurya, we do offer admission consulting. So please reach out to us. This year, the number of slots are very limited with us because we are already working with some students. So reach out to us. I'd like to understand your case. And if we have some bandwidth available, we'll definitely help you out over there. Okay. And if you guys have any other questions, you can post now. And if you want to connect with me later directly, you can mail it to me, mail to me on piyush@gmatwiz.com, or you can reach out to me on WhatsApp on this number, which is stated on the screen right now. Okay. Nilay says yes or no. I'm not sure, Nilay, what was the question there. So, okay. We'll wait for a couple more minutes to see any questions. If people post any other questions, let me know. And if you really like this webinar, please give it a thumbs up so that more people can benefit from the same and it can reach more people. All right. Okay. So I don't see any other questions as of now. So feel free to reach out to me if any of you have any questions later on. My details are here. At GMATWhiz, we offer an online course as well as private tutoring, so you can check out both offerings on our website. Uh, and we can definitely help you get to the target score that you're looking at, because we have one of the highest score improvement, average score improvement among the GMAT Club partners that are there. Okay, so it was great interacting with you. All the best for your GMAT prep, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you so much. Thank you, Amit. Thank you, Vijay. Thank you. It was